people think it's a game of scale. And
we're cautiously conservative.
Yeah.
And you know the worst part? You have to apologize for that. You never lost in a quarter. You made money every quarter.
Yeah.
One of my favorite slides, 3 years, not 3 quarters, 3 years, 12 quarters. We have a bar chart. And I got a shout out to Holly and her team for making this beautiful chart. It's our revenue and gross mining margin for 3 years. And they kind of earmark every macro event, the FTX collapse, the ETH merge, Celsius, et cetera, et cetera. And Frank said this, but we made money. We had positive gross mining margin every single quarter for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Even when Bitcoin was 16,000. And on top of that, if you take our corporate G&A, which is about 3.2 million bucks a quarter, and you subtract that, we still made money as a business on a cash basis, right? And I think that's a very powerful metric. I call that corporate margin, which is what's your gross mining margin minus your G&A, because some people have like insane amounts of G&A as well.
Yeah.
So a monster of a beast is a little company called Apple.
Yeah.
And Apple does, in the best times, a couple $1 million of revenue per employee. And in our worst times, we're going to do that. Yeah. And last year was over $5 million per employee.
Yeah.
And so that is at the top end. And that's how we run our business. We don't want to have to apologize. We're green. It's been a real challenge to get Paraguay to find something that's 100 megawatts.
Let's talk about that if we may. Like, how did you guys come up with that deal? How did you source that? What was the things? It's really hard to do business down there. Like, people have been trying forever.
So we don't get brownie points for all the deals that we look at and don't do. But what Frank was alluding to, 6 megawatts in Quebec, 30 in Manitoba. We've scoured North America for scale, but green energy. And, at one point we even contemplated doing a renewable deal where we would get into power production. That's going to cost us 2 million a megawatt, because now you're an infrastructure builder for solar. And you look at the economics of that. Is it really worth spending that much per megawatt, right? And so, by the way, I believe we're the most globally diversified company in terms of operations now with Paraguay. We'll be operating in 4 countries, right?
9 time zones.
Sweden, Iceland, Canada, and Paraguay, right?
Now Paraguay.
Yeah.
Right.
Did
and
you guys go down,
two
by the way?
hemispheres.
That was a good point. We moved very quickly. And when we got confirmation that there was 100 megawatts or more, and Ida was at the big conference in Hong Kong. Yeah. And I'm mobilizing the troops here and grabbed Johanna flies from Barcelona because she speaks some Spanish. Grab Gabe, our general counsel. He speaks some Spanish. Yeah. Get Luke, and he's French and English from Montreal as our chief operating officer. And it's not easy to fly there. So everyone's got flights coming to get down there. And through the organization that Ida and I are members of as YPO, so is the president of the country. So we start reaching out to set up a meeting. And then we had a meeting for an hour and a half with the president of the country and his chief ministers. We took a helicopter, and it was the first time for Luke and Gabe ever being in a helicopter. But it was the only way for us to go across the bottom of the country to see the dam, see where other people have sites, and then come back. And then we drove to an area where we want to build. And it's about an hour and a half from the capital. Okay. And so that's not too bad, like as a drive. It's a pretty drive. It's much safer country than I would say other countries in Latin America. Classic would be, and I would go to Peru, Chile for my funds, and it'd be the copper gold mining companies. You get on an Uber and you're on your phone and an Uber going to the airport, and they'll tell you to hang up your phone because people in Peru, in Lima, will smash the window to steal your phone. And graffitis over everything, and big chains come to close all the stores. You don't see that in Paraguay. Yeah. So like you feel a whole lot safer. Yeah. And so I felt that meeting the president, meeting contractors, meeting people that did work for other data center people, hearing the strengths and weaknesses of the country, we said, okay, we can scale, but right now we're going to go with this amount. And for us to go and put more capital at risk, it will require from us a fiscal stability agreement.
Yeah.
Because the president's a great guy, but what happens if the president's gone? Yeah. And so the only way to go past that term is to have a fiscal stability agreement.
Okay. So the 100 megawatts, was that like a threshold you guys needed to be able to pull the trigger on something like this? How do you guys think about the energy procurement?
And with the new machines, Aiden says, well, heck, that's almost going to be 7 exahash.
Yeah, it's a lot of density.
And so we add that, and we're upgrading. We're going to be at 12 exahash in the next 12 months. And so we looked at the construction costs. Like they were really attractive, weren't they? I think 160,000 a megawatt. Was that roughly?
So the way that we look at getting back to the ethos of best cash return on invested capital.
Yeah.
The other, metric, if you will, or even constraint is, we haven't gone around spending 2 million or $1 million a megawatt to buy sites, which some companies did in the bull market, right? And so we want to say, like, how can we get sites at like a really attractive dollar per megawatt basis, right? To Frank's point. And this ticks all the boxes: cheap green energy, scale, and very attractive dollar per megawatt cost, right? So we and relationships with like Frank and the team at the president, right? It was awesome seeing my whole team with a president of a country, and so that those components really allow us to build this super scale site. And as Frank mentioned, right, getting to 12 exahash, we're aware of what's going on in the market. So, people aren't going to get excited if we go from 5 to 6 or 7 exahash. So like, okay, so we've got to at least double this. How do we go from 12? And like, by the way, there's more scale than that we're contemplating, right? Yeah. So we are looking at, 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, right? But we're very measured. And when we do it, I wish we got a benefit of the doubt multiple like some of our peers did, right? For us, it's always, we got to land a backflip perfectly. And then people are like, okay, now we'll clap for you, right? Yeah. It's a very attractive dollar per megawatt. We haven't said specifically.
And last month I was in Africa, in Zambia. So I met the president HH in Zambia. And they have surplus hydro. So what's interesting about countries like Paraguay and Zambia, they built these huge dams. They have this surplus electricity, and it's idle basically, or they sell it to countries around them who don't pay.
Yeah,
they don't pay. And Melee to have a group country leadership meeting in that part of South America, gave $100 million. He still owes another close to another 100 million for electricity for years ago that the previous administration didn't pay.
Yeah.
Guess what? Bitcoin miners is a hedge. They get paid every month. Their banks can't protect. The peso's gone down. The dollar's gone up. Well, they need US dollars. So every month we pay them US dollars. And if you try to ask a bank to put on a currency hedge to protect the country, it break their capital.
Yeah.
So we are that type of, I mean, this is the word I'm looking for. We are a big benefit to the federal government